Show. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. My co-host, as always, is Tom Collier, the guitar player for Held Hostage, principal songwriter, and of course, the president of Fire Rock Music, who sponsors our great little show here. And our guest today is Derrick Brumley, the lead singer and guitar player from the band Conquest. How are you doing today, Derrick?
I'm doing great. Welcome, you guys. Glad to be here.
Yeah, this is the first time you're on the show, so it's great to have you here. Now, of course, we were checking out in prep for today's show some songs off of your latest album, Paradox. Let's talk about the new album. I mean, right off the bat, of course, one of the things I got to ask you is you guys covered a Rainbow classic, Man on a Silver Mountain. And let me tell you, Derrick, you put your best Ronnie James Dio forward. Talk a little bit about covering this song and why you picked it.
So it was a song that I grew up on. It was one of my favorites back when I was a kid. And it was just something that got played all the time. And as I matured through my career, I said, one of these days I'm going to record that song. And when it got to this record, and got time to do this one, it felt right. It seemed like it was the right time to do it. We were playing it live sometimes. When we end our sets, sometimes we'll play one or two covers, kind of as a fun thing. And yeah. Certain songs we'll grab from, and that was one of them. So it found itself on the record. And again, Dio for me, I mean, Dio, Halford, I mean, those are my two main inspirations. Yeah. And you can throw a little bit of Bruce in there too, but for the most part, that's where.
Oh, wow. And I'm assuming growing up, you must have seen Dio live at some point in your life, right?
Oh, several times.
Okay, Tom, I'm going to throw it to you because I know you must have a few questions for Derrick.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, Dio was incredible. I grew up 45 minutes from him. I know Ronnie Dio, knew Ronnie Dio before he died. He's lived in Cortland, New York. I'm in Syracuse, New York. So I was very happy to hear that. I seen him with Elf and all the way through Heaven and Hell. But what I want to ask you about is a really cool song that I listened to. World Has Gone to Hell.
Right.
That had some political tones into it. I don't really get into the politics end of it, but I really thought it was cool. It really felt like today, a modern thing. Why don't you tell me a little bit about writing that song, if you don't mind?
So the World's Gone to Hell is actually the last record. It was the title track. And when putting that song together, pretty simple, man. Whether you're into politics or not, I try to leave the concept of politics out of it and just look at the world for what it is.
Sure.
And to me, the lyrics, the devil's in the details. I mean, everybody has their own take on what that means, right? So that's kind of how I viewed it from start to finish with that track. It has some political overtones, but I don't dance on glass because when it comes to that, man, you can be hated or you can be loved real quick for no good or bad apparent reason.
That's the cool thing about leaving it up to interpretation, because oftentimes a fan will listen to a song and they get totally something different out of a song than what you even wrote it about. But that's cool too, because you sit there and think, wow, that's not what I wrote it about. But it's cool that they get that kind of interpretation out of that song.
And I think that's really what makes music so cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Tom.
Okay. So another thing I wanted to ask you about, Dark Star Records, are you guys still on that label? It's a good label. That guy got hurt a while back, but the owner.
Jeff's doing better, and yes, still on Dark Star Records. They've worked with us on this record pretty strong. And as you know, Chipsters, how I got you guys going.
Yeah.
And then so between him and then guys, Tim Binder doing radio at New Ocean Media.
Tim's a good friend of mine. I know Tim personally.
Yeah, so there you go. So you know who I'm talking about. All going well so far. It's a band on our level, man. It's hard to do anything anymore with the world we live in, but we're striking out and seeing what we can do. And it takes people like you guys who listen to heavy metal and spread the word.
The cool thing about working with a publicist like Chipster, for anybody that doesn't know who he is, he's a big publicist for rock bands in the music industry. He's been doing this several years, and just to kind of put it out there, you've got the kind of people working behind the scenes with your band that you got the same publicist, just to let people know, as Judas Priest, Michael Schenker, Carmine Appice, Alfred Bouchard from Blue Oyster Cult. So I think you guys are in some good company,
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. So we went to answer you guys' questions. Yeah, Dark Star. Lloyd brought Chip to my to my attention, and we hit it off pretty good, had some long conversations and on how to work the record and what to do with it. So here we are.
And I kind of mentioned those guys, Derrick, because I've had a long-standing relationship myself personally with Chipster PR. They've given me a lot of great interviews over years. And to be honest with you, Derrick, that's how I learned of your band Conquest. I never heard of the band, unfortunately, until now. But that's kind of what I dig about doing this show. A lot of times I will get a press release from a publicist or something, and I initially check out the band, especially if it's something I've never heard of.
Sure.
Because if I'm going to have you on the show, I want to do my research and and get an opinion on the band. And I thought immediately, wow, how is it that I have never heard of these guys? So that's the cool thing about doing this show. So let me ask you, how long has the band been around?
Oh gosh, man, too long. I mean, I started the band when I was 13.
Wow,
so,
many years.
So it went through a lot of what I call little kid changes, right? And probably by 1986, 87, we were really out there, making noise in the St. Louis area. And then, through the mid 2000s, we became a Jaeger band and got out there and got to do a whole lot of fun stuff.
And we'll get to your vocals in a minute, but let me ask you about your songwriting, because that's one thing to me that really stood out on the album. And I bring that up because, oftentimes a band will do a cover because maybe they're just starting out and that's how they used to do it in the music business, or it's a way to kind of get people to take notice of the band.
Sure.
Or maybe, you're short of one song per album or something like that. But what's interesting, as great as your cover of Man on the Silver Mountain was, I got to tell you, there wasn't necessarily need for it, if you know what I mean, because the original material in itself really stands out. I mean, one song on the album that I really dug, to me, it had kind of, it's kind of current take maybe on the current state of the world, is Babylon America.
Sure, definitely. Yeah. It's one of those two. I wrote that song during COVID, right when COVID hit, sitting in the dining room on the piano. And the first lyrics, it was truly how it was. You couldn't go to the grocery store, you couldn't go nowhere. Everything was silent, and it was almost deafening. It was so silent, with the realities going on around us. So that's where that song came from. And then, again, me being me, you turn on the news, you get this person's opinion, watch this nonsense, and then you start feeling awkward about the whole thing, and then you get the rest of it. That's why it went from a very soft-spoken intro to what I think a pretty strong, aggressive ending. So,
I mean, COVID hit a lot of people. There was that realization finally that maybe we weren't going to have some freedoms that we had grown maybe accustomed to having, or that we took for granted. You realize in the snap of a second how life could change. I mean, I live in Long Beach, California, right on a busy street, and I mean, traffic constantly going by. And I tell you, when all of a sudden nobody was driving, it was like a ghost town. There wasn't a single car going by in front of the house. And then all of a sudden, I remember, not even like you said, being able to go to the grocery store, but then when you started being allowed to go out to do stuff like that, at least to get your groceries, I used to, just to get out of the house, like go get. I think I'll go to the grocery store to get out.
Right. So that's kind of where that tune came from on the overall scheme of things. And it's one of my favorites. I didn't expect it to be, but it ended up being one of my favorite tunes on the record.
And what surprised me about the album as a whole, it shows your diversity as a vocalist. I mean, yeah, you're a metal band and a lot of the stuff is hard hitting, but something like America Babylon, I mean, it's not quite metal. It's definitely not a power ballad, but you know what I mean? It's different.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing that. I appreciate that a whole lot.
And then I also love that song for the fact that it starts out kind of mid-tempo, but then it gets a major kick right in the middle.
Yeah. And again, that was something the band worked in one room together when we were putting all that stuff together, and it was a whole lot of fun putting that kind of stuff together.
Yeah. I mean, I would describe Conquest as kind of old school metal with a modern twist to it.
Well, that's a pretty cool phrase, because that's been used about us before. Because I guess when you're still playing in today's world and you're paying attention to the other guys and you listen to, think about the new Priest record, right?
Yeah.
As much as it's Priest, it still has a new feel to it, and I love that. So we don't want to be the old stale loaf of bread on the shelf there. It only has one flavor. And so I've always been that way. I like diversity in music.
Yeah.
I don't really like records when it sounds like the song starts and then 15 minutes later the song ends. That's not my cool. That's not
Another
cool.
great song I got to ask you about that I just love on this album is "Last Goodbye." I don't know if it's got a little bit of religious feeling to me. I don't know if you'd call it a ballad, but it's probably the closest thing that you have about to a ballad on the album.
I would probably say you're right. So yeah, wrote that song about the passing of my father, and so it was very wasn't necessarily going to be on a Conquest record, but it just, you know what, my dad was so supportive of my band, so at this point he belongs there anywhere I do anything. So
so have you performed that song yet live? I was curious. I mean, you must get kind of emotional if you do.
Yeah, I don't know that I could. I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
I think I would stumble. So some things are left better and with the bow still on it. You know what I mean? And I kind of think that one would be, I'm not saying I couldn't down the road, but right now it would be, it'd still be a little hard.
I mean, it makes sense. Now, again, as I said, Tom's a fellow musician. He's a songwriter, guitar player. So let me ask you, Tom, what did you think of the singing, the songwriting, and the guitar playing?
I thought it was excellent. It was really good and a cool tune that I like. So I went through all your discography. I went back through it today, and a tune that I really thought was cool was "Valley of the Damned." I just thought that was a cool. It just, I'm friends with Udo Dirk Snyder, and it's I don't know. I could just feel a little bit of accept in there.
Sure,
it had like that darker feel to it,
without a doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great song. Great song. So let me ask you, Derrick, is the whole band involved with the songwriting or being the singer? Do you do most of that yourself?
So I write the themes mostly in the lyric basis, but the guys do sometimes throw in a curveball. I mean, like Rob brought in Celtic Mist and the title, and I worked out some lyrics for it and the melodies, but he brought in the bass melody, and Mike brought in the front of Love Amplified, which gave us that little Van Halen feel or whatever you want to call that there. And so, so I thrive off everybody else's feel. Lee's drums, man. I mean, what can you say? He's the kind of drummer sits down and you go, "Hey, I'm thinking this," and he's like, "You mean like this?" And you're like, "Yeah, like that." You know what I mean? And he just does it. So super cool.
We lost Tom, but he may jump back on. I'm not sure if he lost his internet connection. But let me ask you, how did you initially hook up with the? I mean, you said you started the band when you were 13. So are these guys initially that you went to school with?
No, so the whole band has evolved. So Rob, the bass player, I knew him in 82 and 83, basically high school, high school. And he played bass with me, but then he left, went off and did cover band stuff. And we went on out and did I Stayed Original. And later on in life, about 15 years ago, something like that, he got back with us. So I needed him. And then Mike came in 95, and Lee got in the last couple of years. Lee's been a great drummer in the area with a lot of good projects around here. And when Tim had to leave the band due to personal issues, Lee stepped right in and took the ball and ran with it.
Oh, wow. So, another question I'd love to ask is, I know one of the hardest things is coming up with a band name. Conquest, I like it because it's kind of simple, but I'd love to know the story behind that.
So really the story behind that was, so let's go back to when I was 13, right?
Yeah.
And I go up to the schoolyard with my good friend at the time, Tony Green, and we're meeting his cousin for the first time. I'm going to get high, if you can imagine that, right? Right. So I come back home and I'm all high, and I sit down at the kitchen table, and I don't play guitar yet. I don't do anything yet. And for some reason, I wrote a song called Conquest, and it was about the fountain of youth. And a couple weeks later, he had a drum set, I had a guitar, and I traded one of my hockey sticks for a guitar with some dude in the basement at a party. And, it all stemmed from there. Kind of crazy, but true.
Oh, wow. Well, just to let people know what's going on, my co-host Tom, it looks like he's going to try to jump back on, but it looks like his internet went out, so he may or not be able to jump back on, but that's all right. The show goes on here. This is Metal. And so let me ask you, while we're on the subject of that, Derrick, a lot of people I've interviewed over years, typical story is, they started out on the guitar and maybe they became a singer later. Were you always a singer, or were you the guy that had the best voice in the band?
Well, actually, I wasn't the guy who had the best voice in the band. No, yeah, I was not a singer. I was a guitar player. I mean, I wanted to be Edward Van Halen. I wanted to be, Glenn Tipton. I wanted to be that. That's where my heart was at, you know. So uh, I don't know. I'd say mid 80s, somewhere in there. This singer comes, that singer comes. Singers, the era I'm talking about. You had to
Sure.
deal with the egos and all that kind of stuff. So one day, my bass player at the time, who was Tony Restivo, he hit me in the arm and said, "Hey man, why don't you just do it? You do the backups, you do a great job." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't really want to be the singer. So we tried a few more guys and didn't work out. And then one day I was like, hey, I got this song, blah blah blah. So and I kind of wrote it for my voice opposed to writing it for somebody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that kind of gave birth to it all.
The reason I ask is, if anybody doesn't know this, that's kind of Dave Mustaine's story. I heard him talk about over years that, of course, he was originally the guitar player in Metallica. When he got fired from that band, initially his idea was to form his own band, and he wanted to have, a different lead singer, but he could never find somebody. I guess his issue was they could sing his songs the way he wrote them, the way he heard them in his head. And his manager or somebody told him, what, Dave, why don't you just try sing? These are your songs. Why you? And the interesting thing about that, had that not happened, Dave Mustaine or the world may never knew what a great singer a guy was,
It would never materialize, and especially when you hear a Megadeth song and you hear him come on singing, you know exactly who it is.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
there's no doubt. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And you kind of feel that way too, that while you may not think you're the greatest singer in the world, people obviously buy your records. They come to see you play in concert. So you do have your fan base there, but do you feel the fact that you're the guy that wrote the songs, maybe you can think them more to heart, if you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I guess, I mean, of course, because when you're putting the lyric down and you're singing it, it's always got to be something that I feel comfortable with doing lyrically and being able to do it. I strive hard to be good. I don't want to, last thing, I'd rather be in key and just be strong than to be out of key trying to be something you're not.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I listen to these songs and to my ear, you're a pretty good singer. I'm sure, like anything, it's taken you, a lot of work to get to the point where you are. But do you feel you're more critical of your ability than other people?
Probably, man. I'm probably my worst critic, but you know what? I love critiquing it, sometimes probably to a fault. But at the same time, I always want to keep it with the raw feel to it. I don't like music that's overproduced. So I try real hard, sometimes to leave the little bit of the runny part of it over here. You know what I mean?
Sure. And because I imagine when you're first starting out and you're just a guitar player, that's fun being up on stage and everything. But then when you become a front man, not only do you got to remember what all the right guitar chords to hit, but you got to remember the lyrics and get that right. And all eyes are on you. You're the one in center stage.
That's a true statement. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes you welcome it, and sometimes it's not so welcomed. Like anything else in life. But again, I can't say it enough about the band. Mike brings a certain element. Lee brings a certain element, and Rob brings a certain element. On stage, there is a chemistry that's not just, some bands, like when they talk about super groups, and then you go see them and they're not so super, but everybody in that band's great. But because there's no chemistry, it doesn't really matter how great
it's kind of like Velvet Revolver. They called that a super group, and maybe it was, but 4 of the 5 members were from Guns N' Roses, and then they had the one guy on guitar that nobody ever heard of.
Yeah, it wasn't my thing either. You know what I mean? So I agree with you. I agree with you on
that. So what's up for Conquest now? I know you guys probably getting ready to go out on tour, support the new album, or have you already started that?
So we'll be doing some more shows. We got a date coming up here with Burning Witches in a couple of weeks. And then we got a little bit of time off as we prep for some things. And we got a bunch of stuff happening in the fall that'll all get posted. I'm sure Chip will send it all out to everybody. And then that's how we'll go. Well, we're kind of trying to wait through the summer and this elections nonsense and get this all over with so we can, because look at gas prices. It's through the roof, right? It's like, it's hard to do. It's hard to get out there and make it right. So looking forward to doing it though. Can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, again, not to get too political here, but that's the one thing I hate is the world being the state that it's in, and then people get up and lie on TV. Oh, the economy's great. You guys don't know what you're talking about.
No, the economy is not good. There's
Yeah.
also a track on the record. I don't know if you listen to it or not, called "World of Hate." That's about that. That's about how everybody's blinded to the reality, and yet all the stuff's happening around everybody, and
Yeah.
nobody seems to care. So
See, I dig that you guys are willing to write songs like that, because there are so many. I mean, maybe the lyrics aren't blatant about it, but I think, like, I listened to Babylon America, and without before I even talked to you today, it was obvious to me what it was about.
yeah.
And I dig the fact that you guys are kind of willing to go out there and do that, because most musicians, most bands don't want to touch that stuff. Like, oh no, we better just.
You know how I view it is like this. If
Yeah.
you don't like it, you're going to listen to something else. I mean, that could be because of the drums. That could be because of the guitar playing.
Sure,
You don't
sure.
like my voice. If that's what stops you is the lyrical content,
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, I was talking to somebody else about your band that I was going to be interviewing you today, and they checked out some of the songs off the new album, and you guys are like a metal band, like we said, but this friend of mine, he was telling me, it sounds kind of like a lot of the messages kind of religious based, kind of like religious metal. I know that's not really what you are, but once again, it's different what people get out of the music.
Perception is everything, right? So I would say, sure, it's religious if you want to look at it through that lens.
That lens,
You know
or
what I
whatever.
mean?
Yeah.
If you could count it, you could call it sacrilege if you want to look at it through that lens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of people don't like the truth. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Nobody likes the truth. So I like to write about the truth, and that way everybody has a strong opinion about it, one way or the other.
Yeah, that's cool. And so let me ask you, how many albums have you guys released to date?
This is basically our 10th, with including an EP and earlier record that I don't like to claim.
And the reason I ask is I was curious if people wanted to go back and check out your back catalog or purchase the back catalog. Is all that stuff still in print, or talk a little bit about that?
So most of it is, not all of it. Some of it's just available for download, but some of it you can still get hard copies on it. If you do The World's Gone to Hell, you can get hard copies. If you do The End of Days, you can get hard copies. So and we did a cover record too, called Under the Influence, which was a lot of fun, playing a lot of our so-called heroes, if you would.
Oh wow, I'll have to check that out. Just share with me, what are some of the songs you guys covered on that?
So we covered The Ripper by Priest. We covered Cowboys from Hell, Pantera. We covered some UFO. We covered some, believe it or not, Bon Jovi. It was a different take on it.
But it's kind of funny. Like even Bon Jovi was considered. I mean, again, that shows you how much kind of the music scene has changed. But I remember growing up, like in the '80s, Bon Jovi by many people were considered metal simply because he had long hair. At the time. Yeah. Oh,
the long hair and the guitar was a little bit loud, But we covered we covered Sabbath. We covered pretty much. We touched everybody within reason. There's only so much room, but yeah, a lot of good stuff on there.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Now, and what makes fun talking to a guy like you, Derrick, is, like I said, through the show, I like people, publicists like Chipster, they send me press releases. I find out about bands like Conquest that I never would have heard about, and so myself, and like my co-host, he went back and checked out some of the older material as well. And I think when you guys are starting to get this kind of attention, maybe that'll start to happen. You got your hardcore fans that you've always had from day one, and then people just learning about the band now, and they're going to go back, check out the past albums.
Well, I hope so, man. And it takes good people like you guys to spread the word for us. So it's much appreciated. I can tell you, we definitely don't just expect anything. So when you guys do that.
Well, I think too, besides the great people behind the scenes, I think you wouldn't be making the kind of noise you are if the band didn't have any kind of talent. Like I said, the one thing that really stood out to me in all the songs I listened to, the songwriting.
Well, thank you. That means, that again, means the world to me. And I know the band will love to hear that too, man. So again, by far our best record, Paradox, to me. We've got it all there. I think if you like heavy metal, I think you'll like the record, unless you're just trying to be that way,
And I'm kind of like you, Derrick, in that I like everything. I mean, Yeah, I grew up and typically, what's in my record collection is, dare I say record, but that's kind of showing my age, but uh, mostly metal and hard rock. But you know what? I also have a love for everything from the Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, the Eagles, because you even look at someone like the Eagles, the reason those songs have been played and loved by so many people for over 40 years is it's great songwriting. They got great songs. Those songs
100%.
they got
Totally
great
agree
hooks,
with you.
So you don't necessarily have to be in a metal band or a hard rock band to write a great sounding tune.
I like it all, man. I like the Eagles. I'm an Elton John fan. I
Sure,
like a
sure.
lot of music. Music. I
Well,
mean,
those are great. Those are great songwriters, kind of like what I said about you. And the thing that I urge people to go and get the new album Paradox is because a lot of people go in and thinking, oh, they're a metal band, but like I think they'll be very surprised in the fact there's a little bit of everything for people.
I think you're right. That was our plan, and I'm glad that it turned out that way, man. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you guys a whole lot, Jason.
Sure, sure. And let me ask you about the title Paradox. Is that kind of you're at the paradox of your career, I guess?
So yeah, it is. That's what it is. It's a paradox of if you look at the lyrical content versus the longevity of the band versus the way the music is not just one thing, it becomes a paradox.
And I imagine you're also at a point in your career where because you have all this back catalog of music and you do want to focus on the new stuff, like that's got to be a hard part about coming up with a set list. Okay, I know a lot of people are going to be wanting to listen to a new album, these new tunes, but how do you go decide about the older material, what gets in the set and what doesn't?
So when we're headlining, we play, an old tune, a couple new tunes, an old tune, a couple new tunes. Right now, going out and supporting Burning Witches here in a few weeks, we'll play majority off the new record just to be pumping the new stuff.
Sure, sure. And we have do we have a music video or a future single to look forward to that you guys have in the
Yeah,
works?
so there's a music video for The Walking Dead. You can
Okay.
look that up. It's on YouTube. There's a music video for The Writings on the Wall. That's also out there. And there's 3 more videos to come. I know there's a couple lyric videos going to pop out real soon too.
And let me ask you, Derrick, if you wouldn't mind, would it be all right to include one of your videos in if we edit it into the show here?
You sure can. You can use both of them, all of them, whatever you want to do, my friend.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's definitely keep in touch, Derrick. Sorry, I just got word from my co-host. What happened is he lives in New York, and I guess there's a state internet outage.
Okay, of course there is.
So hopefully,
I got to jump anyway, my friend, because the next one's going to start for me, so I don't want to miss it.
Take care. I'll be in touch and let you know when this will go up sometime in July. I'll be sure to let Chip know. We'll definitely have you back. Okay.
I appreciate it, Jason. Thank you, friend.
Okay. Bye.
See ya.